Today we reenacted John the Baptist's baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River. Now, John's gospel says that Jesus was baptized in Bethany beyond the Jordan, and since he was writing from Jerusalem, this is essentially on the Jordan side. In fact, it is kind of right near Jericho and Mount Nebo. You remember Mount Nebo from where Moses was able to look at the promised land. Now today, that is not the site that is the most popular. Instead, it is this beautiful site here, which is much farther upstream, so you have much cleaner water. Also, this land has been part of Israel for quite a while, as opposed to quote unquote the actual site, which has been hotly contested over the years, and in fact it was still in fairly solidly in Jordanian hands until about 1995 when a peace agreement was made. And so essentially tradition has held that baptisms, as you see here, are actually done up here at this more northern site. Because we didn't have a pastor, we had volunteers ultimately say a prayer and then baptize people, but also Gia and I baptized each other, which was just such an honor. I can't tell you how much I appreciate her kind words, and just the opportunity to share in this really special moment of rebaptizing her and having her rebaptize me in the same waters where Jesus himself was baptized. Once we'd emerged from the beautifully cool waters of the Jordan River, we traveled about 17 miles south of the Sea of Galilee into Bet Shean, also called Scythopolis. Because of its strategic location at the top of the Jordan Valley, which of course is very fertile and has relatively a lot of water, this site has been occupied for thousands of years. And most of the ruins that we see at this site, which of course we're looking at a map of right now, are from, they were built in 63 BC. At the same time this city was constructed, most other cities were still confined to the tells, right? So these mounds with one city built on top of the other, built on top of the other. But the Romans had developed new technology, which was very important to them being successful at this and other sites, aside from the tell, which we can see in the background here, and that is the ability to move water wherever the heck they wanted. There are many telltale signs that this was a Roman city, including this right here, the Hippodrome, which, of course, we all found to be magnificent. So we, again, had a great time just playing around in this magnificent structure. Now, most of the other buildings have been knocked down in the 700s AD by an earthquake, and only relatively recently excavated after a 1950s housing project kind of purchased the land, and they actually built around these ruins, thank goodness, and excavations were able to commence. Of course, at the time, the Jews would look at such decadence, right? These magnificent structures, marble towers, imported all the way from Italy, right? Like the Romans really seemed to have the favor of the gods, as would have been the opinion of the time. And so this, of course, starts to fuel the fire of tension between the Romans and the Jews. This site is also significant biblically in the Old Testament because this is where Saul was killed on Mount Gilboa, which we can see up there, driving past. It's a little bit south of Bet Shean. And as the story goes, the Philistines took his body to Bet Shean and his two sons and put his body in pieces up on the walls of this very city. Ultimately, some friends that he had helped out before cut his body down and buried it in the right way. But this site, of course, is significant to the story of Saul. After Bet Shean, we drove south for about an hour and a half to the western side of the Dead Sea, to a site called Qumran, yet another site that I was really excited to go to on this tour. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which were found on this site, are legendary in archaeology, and we've really learned so much about the history of the Bible and just the different sects of Judaism at the time. In fact, these scrolls were written by like picture monks that go off into the desert to kind of escape the corruption of Jerusalem at the time, and essentially they are practicing a series of ritual baths every day, and like extreme cleanliness, and abstaining from all sorts of different things, in preparation for the coming of the Messiah or the end of the world. And so part of their job was to write these scrolls, write the current versions of the biblical books. In fact, most of the books of the Bible, as well as some others that didn't actually make it into the Bible a couple hundred years later, when they actually sat down and duked it out, what books are going to be part of the Bible and what books are not going to be part of the Bible. And so these Essenes, their practices may sound familiar because John the Baptist, in fact, was almost definitely part of this group for a while. He ultimately broke his vow and left and started going out into the rest of to the rest of the land and started baptizing people, including Jesus, as we know. And a lot of the kind of Christian apocalyptic kind of tones are really rooted in this group. And so we had, I don't know, a half hour, 45 minutes to just like do whatever we wanted at this site. And so go figure, I found the hiking trail and I went out and I hiked up to one of these caves. I thought it was really interesting that the cave was kind of filled with a lot of shells and a lot of seeds, which I don't know if that's like a carryover from when the sea level used to be higher, or if there's just some bird that is caching all of this stuff in the cave. But the closest source of water is the Dead Sea, and nothing lives in the Dead Sea. So really interesting. And of course, got to hike, even though, again, it was 108 degrees. So we continued south along the Dead Sea, and we heard all about how the Dead Sea has actually been a really rich area for a really long time. In fact, Cleopatra demanded that the Dead Sea be under her taxation, so very valuable to her, and anyone else who has held power over this area. Essentially, extracting the salt has been really important to sell to sailors, to armies, to travelers. Of course, salt is needed for preserving food, and was actually very expensive in antiquity. It was also this area was also known for its persimmon perfume. So not the persimmon that we know of right now, but some kind of mystery perfume that was pretty famous. And so, as you can see, we had a great time at the Dead Sea, floating around and getting a little bit more mud skincare. Thanks for watching.